Welcome to Module 5. In this unit, we are going to be applying order of operations from Module 4, and we are going to use them in some applications. So in our first section, 5.1, we are going to be going over mean, median, mode, and range. So before we interpret or find a mean, median, mode, and range, let's go over the definitions first before we work through some problems. So first things first, a data set is a group of numbers or values. So for example, in example 1 down here, we have 4 values, and these 4 values make up a data set. And then we have the mean, and a mean is the average of the data set. And we actually have a formula for mean. And to find the mean, you add up all the numbers, or you take the sum of all the values in the data set, and then you divide that by the total number of data values. So for example, in example 1, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 data values. So you'd add up all 4 of these, that's what you get in the numerator, and then you divide that sum by 4. And then we have the median, which that is the direct middle point of the values in the data set, which is not quite the average. And I know that might be a little confusing right now, but it'll make more sense once we work through an example. And then we have mode, which is the most reoccurring value or values of the data set. So essentially, whatever values repeats the most, that is our mode. And one thing to note here is that we can have more than one mode in a data set. So that's one important thing to note. And then for range is a measure of how spread out the values are in a data set. So for example, to find the range, what you want to do is you take the largest value in the data set, and then you just subtract it by the smallest value in the data set. So with all that in mind, let's work through our first example. So for our below, we want to find the mean, median, mode, and range for all the data sets that we're going to go through. So for this one, let's first start off by finding the mean. Now, using the formula from above here, we're going to add up all the values. So we're going to do 1 plus 3 plus 1 plus 4. And then you're going to divide that by the total number of values. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 data values. And if you add up all the numbers in the numerator here, you're going to get 9. And 9 divided by 4 is about or approximately 2.25. So that is our mean of this data set. Now let's try and find the median. Now in order to find the median, we have to arrange numbers in a data set from the smallest number to the largest number. And what we're going to do next, I will show you. So we have a 1, a 3, and a 4. And now that we have our values arranged from the smallest to the largest, what we're going to do is we're going to start crossing out these numbers until we are either left with 2 numbers in the middle here, which that is this case, and then in another case, when we have an odd number of data values, in this case we have an even amount because we have 4. When we have an odd, once we cross out, we'll just be left with 1, but that's a little confusing. So for now, let's just focus on this problem. So we crossed out 2, and we're left with 2. So we're going to take this 1 and this 3, add them together, and divide by 2, to find the average of these two values. And 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that is our median for this data set. And then our mode, remember that is our value that reoccurs the most. And in this case, we have a 1, or 1 repeats 2 times. And there's no other values in this data set that repeats 2 times. So our mode is just 1 in this case. So we have 1 mode in this data set, and the mode is 1. And then last but not least, we have our range. Now range is our largest value, which is 4. And then we're going to subtract it by the smallest value. So we have 4 minus 1, and that is 3. Now we have example 2. So I encourage you to pause. Oops, wait, hold on here. There's supposed to be a 7 at the end of this data set. So if you don't have a 7 here at the end, please make sure you add that number 7. And with that in mind, I encourage you to pause the video and work through it on your own to see if you can get the correct answers. Now let's work through it together. Oops. So the first thing we want to find is the mean. And the mean, we're going to take the sum of all the values. So we're going to do 12 plus 6 plus 8 plus 9 plus 7. Then we're going to divide all of that by the number of data values. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 data values, or data values. And then the sum of the numerator, or the top part of the fraction, is 42. And then we're going to divide that by 5. And that is going to get you approximately 8.4. So that is our mean value of the data set. Now looking at the median, remember we are going to arrange the data values from the smallest to the largest. So we have 6 as our smallest data value, and then we have 7, and then looks like 8, we have 7, and then 8, and then 9, and then we have 12. And now we are going to cross out the numbers by groups of 2, which is what we did last time. So 1, 2. So we crossed our groups of 2. And then now we are left with this data value here in the middle, which is 8. And that is our median right there. So our median is 8. And then to find our range, we're going to take the largest value in the data set, which is 12, and then we're going to subtract that by the smallest number, which is 6. So our range is 6. So all of our entire data set has a measure of 6. So that means that our data values are spread out by 6 values. So that's what the range tells us. And then we have our mode. And the mode is the value that repeats the most. So let's look. And it doesn't look like we have any values that repeat more than once. And when this happens, we just have no mode. And then looking at example 3, I encourage you to pause the video as always and try it on your own. Now let's work through it together. So we have our mean. And to find our mean, we are going to add up all the data values. So we're going to get 45 plus 83 plus 83 plus 45 plus 83 plus 892. And then we're going to divide all these values by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the sum of all the values is 1,231. Then we're going to divide that by 6. And that is approximately 205.167. So that is our mean. And then let's try our median. So we have to arrange the values in order from the smallest to the largest. And when we do that, you should get something like this. You should get 45, 45, 83, 83, 83, and then 892. And then now from here, I encourage you, if you haven't, try to find the median on your own before I go through it. And assuming you have given it a try, let's work through it together. So I'm going to cross out the data values 2 at a time, going from left to right. So we're going to go 1, 2, and then because if we cross out 2 more values, what's going to happen is we're going to cross out the entire data set, and that's what we don't want. So when this happens, when we just get 2 remaining like this, as we've seen in example 1, what you want to do is take those 2 values, add them together, 83 plus 83, and divide them by 2. And what we're doing here is actually we are finding the mean. We're finding the mean of these 2 middle data values when this happens. So 83 plus 83 divided by 2 is just going to get you 83. And that's our median. And then now let's look at our mode. And our mode is going to be 83 because 83 repeats 3 times. And there's no other values that repeats 3 times or more times. So we're going to have 83 as our mode. And then our range. That is going to be 892 minus their smallest value, which is 45. And if you subtract those 2 numbers, you should get 847. Now, looking at these last 2 examples, I encourage you to pause the video and try these 2 on your own before we work through it. And then once you are done with it, please resume the video and we can work through it together. So looking at our mean, well, actually, let's read through the problem first. So it says, a survey was taken by multiple college students at Madison College that asked about the average quantity or number of hours of sleep each student gets per night. Below is the data set of all the inputted numbers of sleep the students provided. So we have this rather large data set, and what we have to do is we have to find the mean, median, mode, and range to interpret these values. So let's first start off by finding the mean. And if we take the sum of all values and divide that by the number of values, you should get 96 over 15. And that is approximately, let me write better, approximately 6.4 hours. So according to this data set from this survey, the students who took this survey, the average of all the students that took this gets on average about 6.4 hours of sleep every night. And then we're going to take a look at the median. And if you range that from smallest to largest, I encourage you to actually pause the video if you haven't found the median on your own. So that way you can understand it a little bit better if you get it right or wrong. And assuming you have given this a try, I'm going to start writing out the data set in order from smallest to largest. So we got 3 5s, and then we got 3 6s, 2 7s, 3 8s, and then a 9, and then a 10. So now going from left to right, I'm going to cross out 2 data values at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that is our median. So our median is 6 hours. Now taking a look at our mode. In this case, if you look at the data set, what I always do for the mode is I always take a look at the median, what we did, because it already has the values arranged, so it's easier to see what numbers repeat the most. If you notice, we have 5 that repeats 3 times, but 6 also repeats 3 times, and so does 8. And in this case, because there are no other values that repeat more than 3 times, and we have 3 values that repeat 3 times, this means that we have more than one mode. And in that case, our mode is all the values that repeat 3 times. So our mode is going to be 5, 6, and 8. And last but not least, let's find our range. So our range is going to be 10 because it's the largest data value. And then 2 is we're going to subtract that 10 by 2 because that's our smallest data value. And 10 minus 2 is 8 hours. That is our range. Now looking at example 5, if you haven't yet, I really encourage you to pause the video before we work through it, as this is the last example of this section. So the mean, we're going to take all the data values. So we're going to add them all together, as we did in the above example. And we're going to divide all those values by the number of data values. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, actually, I don't know why I counted those up right now, because I'm going to write number of data values here. Now I can put this over 9. And if you add up all the percentages, you should get 739. Oops. My apologies. I just realized I never actually read through the word problem yet. So let's do that to understand what we're looking at. So the word problem is, Mr. Marchand wants to know some information about his students' overall score in his class. Given the scores below, interpret the data by finding the mean, median, mode, and range. So now to resume, we are interpreting all these percents here by finding the mean, or the average. And we got 739 divided by 9, which if you divide that out as a decimal, you will get approximately 82.11%. So this is the mean, or the average grade in Mr. Marchand's class. And looking at the median, one thing you will notice here is that all the data values are already in order. So we don't have to do any rearranging. So in this case, I'm just going to cross out the values that we are given. So we're going to start off by going left to right and crossing out 2 at a time. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're left with 85 in the middle. So the median is 85%. And then now let's solve for the mode. Find out what the mode is. And let's see if we have any repeating numbers. And if we look at the data set, it doesn't look like we have any numbers that are repeating And if we don't have any numbers that are repeating in the data set, what does that mean about the mode? If you're thinking that means we don't have a mode, you are correct. So we don't have a mode in this data set. And then now for a range, we're going to take the largest value, which is 97. And then we're going to subtract it by 55, because that's our smallest data value. And we are going to get 42%. So now, interpreting this range here in like a real world scenario, in this case, this is telling us that the range, or the scores in this class, they have a range, or they have a spread of 42%. So this person here that has a 97% has a grade 44% higher than this student here that has 55%. Or you can think of it as the student here has 42% less than the student who has 97%. So that's just a way to think about the range in terms of why do we have a range? Because it describes the spread and how far apart the data values are in a set. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I'll see you for 5.2.